Hello students, welcome back to the Analyst for 2nd August 2024, where we will be discussing 9 most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. In the very first article, we'll be looking into the recent announcements by the railway ministers in light of the Indian railway developments. In the second article, we'll be looking into the recent initiative in the current budget, Union Budget of India, that is the pumped storage projects and how it works. In the third article, we'll be looking into the Disaster Management Amendment Bill of 2024 and the various provisions of the same. In the fourth article, we'll be looking into the recent Supreme Court verdict on the SC/ST subclassification. In the fifth article, we'll be looking into the Places of Worship Act. And finally, we'll be concluding the discussion with 4 more important prelims snippets where we will be discussing news in shorts for the prelims examination. So stay tuned. Hello guys, welcome to the first article. Here we will be discussing about the Indian railway developments with reference to the various background and also the recent announcements done by our railway minister. And this is a very important topic for UPSC prelims, particularly for economic and social development, and also in GS3 where we have many PYQs on Indian Railways and also infrastructure in general, where we can use the examples of Indian Railway initiatives, developments as our points in our mains. And it is directly mentioned that in the infrastructure topics, we have to study the topic of Indian Railway too. And here, let me tell you, mains is approaching. And that is why whatever topics that we are covering in the Analyst, they are highly important for your mains. And also, please understand that whatever points, whatever data, whatever examples, whatever good examples, negative examples we are getting from the Analyst, we are getting from the newspapers, never forget to use them in your mains answers. And also, those who are not writing mains this year will be definitely be writing mains next year. Please do ensure that you are including all these points, updating your points in your class notes or in your general notes. Now let us start with the significance of Indian Railways. We know that Indian Railways is the lifeblood of our country. Why? Because we know that it is at the heart of our transportation system, of the overall socio-economic architecture of the country. Because there are hardly any city, any town, except for remote areas, right, that where we do not even see the Indian Railways. So it is a very, very important asset of the country, most importantly. And the asset began as a colonial legacy when the British tried to use the Indian Railways to their own advantage. Later we would inherit that and we would transform the railways to our own needs and our own understanding. And here, let me tell you, the very first train in India ran in 1853 from Mumbai to Thane. Now, we all know the very first happenings in our lives and in the world. Now, can you tell me which route was the second route which was adopted by the Indian Railways back then? In the comments, you let me know. Now, discussing some data from the Ministry of Railways, right? We have 3 million tons of freight every single day transported via the railways, transported via around 21,648 network of trains. And here we are also carrying around 22.15 million railway passengers, right? According to the various reports, Indian Railway is the 8th largest formal employer in the world. Now, can you also tell me which is the largest employer in the entire world? Now, according to the economic survey, we understand that every one rupee increase in the railway output increases our Indian GDP by around 3.3 rupees. So we understand the economic significance of, say, adding new trains, new tracks, better electrification, better safety measures. So whatever amount of extra rupees we spend, we get 3.3 extra rupees out of Indian GDP, right? We have to understand that the potential of the Indian Railways is that 40% of the total global share of rail activity by 2050 will be dominated by the Indian Railways. And that is why understanding the potential, Indian Railways is right now, the government of India right now via the Indian Railways is trying to increase the investment within the same. Apart from the government investment, it is also trying to increase the foreign investment within the same. So it has liberalized 100% FDI in the railway sector, right? In particular segments of the Indian Railways, it is having 100% FDI. Also, when we talk about the revenue considerations, the freight revenues are higher than the passenger revenues, where the freight revenues constitute around 70% or 69% exactly, while the passenger segment is contributing to around 24%. So it is a very, very significant one when we consider the revenue aspect here. Now, when we discuss about the broad issues in the Indian Railways, we on a day-to-day basis understand that there are some issues here. Firstly, we understand there are less funds devolved to the Indian Railways, and also the revenues earned by the Indian Railways are sometimes not enough for the railways to earn. Even sometimes we have seen that when we get the physical tickets, while physical tickets nowadays are very rare, we are migrating to a paperless format of Indian Railway tickets. If you still get the paper tickets, we will be seeing that on the say ticket it is written that railways does not recover most of its costs, right? So it is also written, because we have to understand 80% of the entire railway budget goes on to paying the wages. Also, we find that right now the country is going forward on, say, diversifying the energy sources via the solar energy, renewable energies, and so on. And right now the government is also over a long period of time trying to decrease the amount of usage of coal, because it is polluting in nature. Most of the freight in Indian Railways is actually consisting of coal transport, and this is where we have to understand, if the coal freight is decreasing, the freight charges and the freight revenues will also be decreasing in return for the Indian Railways. So that is also a cause of concern. In reference to that, we also have huge amount of cost overrun. That means most of the passenger revenues in Indian Railways are coming from tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 class of railway transportation for the passenger side, right? The general services of the railways are not having that much of revenue. Also, we understand due to various political reasons, we still have subsidized passenger tariffs in the Indian Railways, with fares as little as 5 rupees for around 20, 30, even 50 kilometers of railway journey, right, in various local railway stations, as we can understand. According to CAG, there is an increasing trend of railway accidents. Now in the comment section, you let me know 2 major railway accidents which took place in 2023-2024, right? We understand that increasing amount of railway accidents, some mishaps are taking place, and the majority of the reasons are actually the late amount of, or say, delays in the track renewals. Right, we understand that we are in a modernization process, but still that process is not expedited, and it is leading to higher amount of delays, and these delays and also the new tracks which can also be having a low amount of quality, they are leading into higher amount of railway accidents, as we can also see from the railway ministry data here, right? So apart from these kind of delays, we are also having delays in the passenger and also in the freight corridors. So this is where we have to understand that delays are a systemic issue of the Indian Railways. We know that also because we have at one point of time faced some delays in our railway journeys, right? Also, there is a huge amount of red tapeism, because railways, it's still having a lot of bureaucratic control. Next, we also have a issue of theft and ticket, because we have the issue of ticketless travel in the Indian Railways, where a lot of cost, a lot of revenues are being foregone. Next, finally, we also see the late adoption of technology in the Indian Railways. So these are the various issues where we have to understand, we have to solve gradually going forward. The measures that the government of India has taken in this regard are very welcome. Firstly, we have to understand the government of India merged the railway budget, which was presented separately from the union budget, right? It is merged right now, leading into better coordination with the entire nation's budget, right? Be it the push on infrastructure, be it the various amount of welfare development schemes and so on. So railways is now integrated with the Indian budget, with the Indian Union budget. Next, also we have seen in the recent budget, right, and also the preceding year's budget from 2017-18 to 2023-24, the railway budget is increasing consistently over a period of time. Now this is a very, very welcome scenario, because we know that railways over a period of time has been actually facing the issue of funds, right? Next, we also have various amounts of key developments we hear now and again, right? Key developments with reference to modernization efforts, such as constructing new lines, doubling the railway tracks. Next, also we have dedicated freight corridors, which is trying to have a separate corridor for the freight trains apart from the passenger trains. Because of the concurrence of the freight and passenger trains on the same line, we are having the delays right now, especially during the months of winter, right? We are having huge number of delays due to the same convergence of the passenger and the freight trains on the same lines. So that is why the government of India is having the dedicated freight corridors right now under construction, which will be having separate lines for both passengers and the freight corridors. Next, we also have Vande Bharat. We also have the ambitious target of bullet train in India, right? So these are actually helping to revamp the entire railway journey for the passengers, mainly to cater to the premium class of the Indian society. Next, we also have Mission Raftar, which is actually targeted at the delays of passenger trains. We understand that on an average in India, according to Railway Ministry data, the trains, the mail trains, the express trains, they run at a meager speed of 50 km per hour, and this is very low. And this is why the Railway Ministry has come up with Mission Raftar to increase the speed through various technological advancements and developments. Next, also the Railway Ministry has a larger Mission 41K, which is having a saving of 41,000 crore over the next 10 years by using various sustainable investments, such as diverting energy from, say, solar energy, wind energy, and so on. So also it is about including sustainability in the Indian railways and having a lot of savings based apart from the conventional energy sources. Apart from this, we have the electrification initiative in India, where we are trying to have the entire railway modules on electric grid. Next, we also are trying to include the private sector in the participation of the Indian railways and the modernization of various railway stations, various amount of railway tracks, and even helping them or using their help in actually having better technologies over a period of time. Next, we also have a very, very important scheme known as One Station, One Product, where we know we have stations in each and every part of the country. And if we try to promote one product, it can be a GI tag product, it can be a traditional handicraft product, it can be a painting, it can be a local produce, right? So that particular railway station can be catering to all the artisans, to all the laborers, to all the people who are employed in that sector, and that station can be a beacon of economic opportunity for them. So this was actually launched at a very major initiative known as One Station, One Product, right? And finally, the IRCTC is also right now collaborating with Swiggy, Zomato, Amazon, and various other private sector to actually increase their revenue and diversify their role. And finally, we also have various environmental friendly initiatives taken by the Indian Railways, such as achieving 100% LED illumination of railway stations, having 69,000 coaches fitted with around 2.4 lakhs bio toilets, having 215 stations certified with environment management system, right? And also the various modern state-of-the-art infrastructure, such as providing Wi-Fi facilities, broadband facilities at the railway stations, right? Now here, according to the railway ministers, we are also having some recent developments in the railways. Now, according to the interim budget presented in February, right, now the railway budget and the railway ministry as a whole is trying to increase its revenues over a period of time, because obviously we have various ambitious projects down the line, and for that projects we actually need a lot of revenues, right? So this is where we have to understand that according to the budget, recent budget and also interim budget, more money will be going into purchasing new trains and making equipments, new tracks, doubling existing ones, buying electricity to run trains, and also the government now is focusing on reducing the revenue foregone or revenue losses. Apart from this, we are also having expansion of 2,500 general coaches, because it has been seen that the general to AC coach ratio in the country is 2:1. That is, Indians prefer more general coaches or non-AC travel in the country, and that is why over a long period of time the government is also trying to increase the 2,500 general coaches, new coaches, to 10,000 additional coaches in the future. Apart from this, the safety and technology enhancements in the railways, the government is actually has introduced a technology known as ultrasonic floor technology to reduce the amount of fractures in the railway tracks, and it has achieved 85% reduction over a period of 10 years. Next, also we have seen the important initiative or say technology of Kavach, which is trying to prevent various railway accidents using radars, using various signals and technology. So it is right now, the government right now is trying to increase the manufacturing of this technology indigenously within the country. Right now it is with 3 firms in the nation. It is trying to, the railway ministry is trying to increase and diversify the manufacturing technology to other firms, and it can also increase the amount of startups investments and increase the role of startups in the sector. Next, it is also trying to train the people or say the railway staff on using the Kavach system efficiently, because it has been seen despite having Kavach, there are actually increasing amount of railway accidents. So there is a need for capacity building. Next, the regional allocations, particularly the states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, has increased, and also there are some land acquisition challenges for the proliferation of the railway lines which must be addressed as of now. And also the new trains and services and the technological upgrades, according to the railway minister, there will be more Amrit Bharat trains which will be trying to boost local connectivity, and also Vande metro train, right? This is a very important intercity, right, train module for various cities where we'll be having high speed metro connectivity within the same. And finally, the government is also focusing on increasing electronic interlocking at various railway stations to also reduce the amounts of railway accidents and increase the amount of technology in the Indian Railways. Now, so far we have had various initiatives, but they are not enough. Now, according to various committees, right, which are very, very important for your mains, we will be discussing 4 committees. According to them, there are various other things to be done in the future. Firstly, there must be a railway safety authority according to Kakodkar committee recommendations of 2012, right? Now, according to this committee, it has also tried to recommend the non-lapsable Rashtriya Rail Sanrakshan Kosh, which is having a corpus of around 1 lakh crores over 5 years. So the government must be implementing this for ensuring any person against any, say, railway accidents, right? We must be having better human resource development, better training of staff, and also according to this committee, we must be having an independent accident investigations which will not be having any bias or must not be covering any accident related deaths in the Indian Railway scenario. According to the Bibek-Debroy committee recommendations of 2014, the Indian Railways must now try to privatize the non-core activities. What are the non-core activities? One example can be the catering services, the food services. Does the railway has any business in catering food to the people, right? Obviously, the quality and the standards must be ensured, but these kind of categories, this kind of, say, activities can be taken up by the private sector, maybe by the MSMEs, right, which can benefit more, right? So the committee recommended this recommendation. In the second one, it also recommended setting up the Railway Infrastructure Authority of India, which will be deliberating on the new construction of railway lines, amount of safety features, and the new trains, their construction overall, right? So we need this kind of authority of India. Next, according to the Vinod Rai Committee 2015, right, an independent railway safety authority must be set up with statutory powers, right, where it will be looking into the various safety aspects. Next, the railway infrastructure company must be set up, where we must be also looking at the railway infrastructure in general. The railway accident investigation board, right, will be must be set up according to this committee. Finally, the Rakesh Mohan Committee, who is also having a recommendation on aviation sector, has given the same for the railway sector. So firstly, we must be trying to reform the accounting system to actually streamline the various profit and losses and the various balance sheet of the railways. We must be trying to also, as Indian Railways, trying to diversify in the fast moving consumer goods sector, FMGC sector, that is transporting those goods, right, consumer durables, IT goods, containerized cargo, and automobile segments. We must be trying to also move or also integrate the railways with these sectors. Also, we must trying to have long distance and intercity transport via the railways, high speed railway corridors for passengers, and also integrate the Indian Railways with logistic parks that can link the railways with ports, with airports, with highways, and so on. So these are the various recommendations you can use in your answers. And for you all, I have a very important question, that Indian Railways is at a transformative junction, focusing on modernization, technological advancements, and sustainability, while also addressing infrastructure and safety issues. Explain. Now, I want all of your 2-3 dimensions in the comment below, right? You let me know what are the some more extra steps that railway can take to reduce accidents and increase investments and development of the nation overall. Now, with reference to this question and also railways in general, rather infrastructure topic in general, there is a very important document known as Niti Aayog Strategy for New India at 75. Now here, due to the paucity of time, I cannot discuss all of the points. You please pause the screen, zoom in the video and look at the various recommendations which you can use in your mains answers with reference to any question asked in Indian Railways, right? So please do utilize these resources. If needed, go through the PDF, download it and read the various say aspects of Indian infrastructure, particularly to railways here. We'll be getting many good targets, many good introductions, many good conclusions, many points to incorporate in your answers. In the next article, we'll be looking at a very important concept in renewable energy sources known as pumped storage projects. Now, according to Budget 2024-25, now the government of India has actually proposed a policy for promoting pumped storage projects which will be actually carrying out our renewable energy targets over a period of time, right? And will be facilitating smooth integration of the growing share of renewable energy with the variable intermittent nature, right? Because we know renewable sources such as wind, solar energy, these are not dependable 24/7, right? We do not have sunlight for 24 hours. We do not have winds constantly over a period of time. So that is why we must be understanding that we must be trying to diversify our renewable energies also. And this is actually one technology, one form of diversification, which is very important for UPSC prelims for topics of environment and also for mains GS3 for conservation, environmental degradation and pollution. Now, understand this technology where simply try to imagine that there is an, say for example, pond or say a lake located at a higher elevation. At the lower elevation, we have a generator of electricity, right? And also we have a pump, right? Now what happens on a day-to-day basis, we know due to the slope, the water from the lake will be percolating via the channel here and will be flowing to the generator, where the gravity, due to the slope of the mountain, due to the slope of the land rather, right, the water will be having potential energy due to its height, and when it will be reaching the turbine, it will be turning the turbine and will be generating energy, right? So this is how generally dams work in a day-to-day basis, right? And here what happens in this pumped storage projects is that while this is the normal process where we are getting energy from the stored reservoir where we have the water stored on top, right? But what we understand by pumped storage is that, for example, you know, this is a period of time maybe where the people are not using too much of electricity, right? So the people would not want that much of electricity, and that is why what this generator can do, or what this generator pump can do, it can pump whatever the water it has used, right, from the top reservoir, which has actually been collected in the lower reservoir. It can actually pump back the entire water back. How? By using various pumps and using various technologies. The main aspect is that while in the very first phase we are using the stored water as potential energy to turn the turbine here and get energy, while we do not, in the next phase, when we do not need enough energy, we can actually pump back the water back here at the top, and this will be ensuring that we are optimally using energy, and we are also trying to store the water at the top reservoir. Whenever we'll be requiring again, we'll be using the water, and when we'll be not using that much of energy, we'll be again pumping it back. So you can understand this is a closed loop system where water is constantly being recycled whenever it is being in use, right? Now this is an example of off-river pump storage project. On-river pump storage project is nothing but your dams, right? We understand that dams are actually located on river, hydropower dams, and where we have the dams directly on the river itself, right? So this is a process where again whenever the dams are using the river water, it is again passing the water from the lower reservoir to the upper reservoir. So it is just trying to conserve energy, conserve the water, and using it whenever it is requiring the energy, right? As we can also see here, right? Maybe during the daytime, right, the people are using energy due to, you know, in mixed period of time due to you know, say heavy industrial applications, due to heavy amount of say household energy use, right? So whenever the people will be needing say the water will be released according to the current demand, it will be going into the power grid, right, via the electric generator, right, by actually turning the turbine. And whenever, say for example during the night period, or say during say some other point of the time, right, of the day, when the water is not required, it will be actually being sent back to the reservoir. So we can understand that the importance of pump storage is very paramount, because we know that the various renewable energy sources, we have also discussed in the beginning, that they are not constant throughout the day, constant throughout the seasons. But what is constant is actually this, right, because we obviously will be having water storage at the upper and the lower reservoirs, right. And here we have to also understand that India is having an ambitious target of reaching 500 gigawatt target of non-fossil fuel power by 2030. This is actually a part of our Panchamrit, right. This is a part of our Panchamrit declared by the Prime Minister of India at the Glasgow COP, right. And here it is very important to actually diversify our say non-fossil fuel power also. And as we can look into the data from 2021-23, 23 gigawatt of non-fossil capacity has been added, such as wind, solar energy and so on. And also from 2023-24, 7.5 out of 10 gigawatts are actually coming from wind and solar energy, right. And right now India has only 3.3 gigawatt of pump storage, where China is the world leader at 44 gigawatts. So India must be trying to diversify and increase the same. Also, we can understand India is having the ready infrastructure. Why? Because India is having a vast network of dams and hydro projects. Also, India has a large number of mines which are not used by, say, the various mining corporations or, say, the government of India. So these abandoned mines can be actually be turned into closed loop pumped power projects, right. So this is where India must be utilizing the potential, because India has a ready infrastructure. Also, when we understand that this is the best type of energy storage, or we can tell that the upper reservoir is actually a large battery. Why? Because that upper reservoir is having a high amount of potential energy to turn the turbine, right. And also we know that we have to charge batteries. How it is being charged? By pumping, by reverse pumping the water from the lower reservoir to the upper reservoir. So we can understand that this is a free natural energy source, right. This is a free natural energy storage, right. At minimum cost, the cost is only of pumping the water back to the main reservoir at the top, right. So we can understand this is a very unique kind of a technology that India can harvest. And that is why in the union budget, as you can see in the second point, pump storage facility to be brought out for electricity storage and integration of renewable energy in the overall energy mix. So this is a very unique form of renewable energy that you can write in your mains answers. Correct. And also we can understand in India, as as we have seen lately also, we have a above normal monsoon as of now. Also we can understand that maybe sometimes in this particular system, maybe we would not even require pumping the water back, because the rainfall will be filling the tank at the top. So rainfall is also aiding this technology. And finally, we have to also understand the hydropower is very easy to say respond to immediate demand and supply shocks, right. That is actually given the term of ramp up or ramp down. That means with reference to with respect to any immediate demand, hydropower can immediately increase the electricity supply, because the technology is such, right. This is not the same with, say, a coal based thermal power plant, where you have to actually bring in more coal, where we have to for example, say for solar energy, we have to build more solar parks, more solar panels. But with reference to hydro energy, right, we can actually modify the flow of the water according to our demand, right. So this is why this is a very innovative technology. And one of the case studies which you can write in your mains answers is the pump storage project at Kadampai Governed Powerhouse at Tamil Nadu, right, where we can discuss some of the various benefits. Firstly, at this particular power house, we have daily power management, where the demand forecasts and the renewable energy availability is actually being predicted by the employees there, and according to them only they can adjust the demand and the supply of power accordingly, right. Also, they can use the surplus solar power, which can be used for pumping water. Now we know that we actually need reverse pumping from the lower to the upper reservoir. For that, we may not even depend on coal power. We can just install some solar panels there, and the solar power from that particular thing can actually transport back the water to the upper reservoir. So this is a very innovative and renewable aspect of the scene. Next, the efficiency and the response time is also very, very high, right? Because the pump to generator mode is actually taking within, say, 1.5 hours. So we can actually get energy within 1.5 hours, and also can produce 400 megawatts for 3 to 4 hours. Especially, it is aiding during the evening peak hours when the people return from their work, switch on their ACs and sit out for entertainment, right? So during the peak hours also, in the local area of Kadampadai, we are seeing that this is having a good amount of benefit. Next, it is also having benefits in reservoir management, where due to rains, right, it is trying to have natural fulfilling of the reservoirs at the boat, at the topper level. And also, finally, the hydropower can be used as a backup whenever we are having sudden jumps or say sudden reductions in the renewable energy generations, particularly during time of monsoon when there is an overcast sky. Right? So during this also we can understand that the significance of the pump storage projects are very, very high. According to this, the government of India has various proposed projects, right, across the country. So this is very, very important kind of a project that you can actually quote in your mains answers. And here, I have a practice question again for you all. The promotion of pumped storage projects as outlined in 24-25 budget is a strategic move to bolster India's renewable energy infrastructure. Explain. Now again, if you want, you can give me 2-3 points of your own in the comments below. And here, you can definitely be using the Prime Minister's 5 goals for India. And this is what I was actually calling the Panch Amrit, right, targets for India, correct? So do not forget to use this in your mains answers as a form of introduction or as a form of conclusion, especially when India is trying to achieve net zero by 2070, right? Now in the comments, you let me know what is the COP number at which the Prime Minister of India declared in Panch Amrit, which is trying to highlight India's climate change aspirations. In the next article, we'll be discussing on the Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024, because recently the government has introduced this bill in the Lok Sabha. It's a very, very important provision for your UPSC prelims, for polity and governance, and for GS3 when we have to discuss the topics of disaster and disaster management. And don't think that this is just a bill, this is not yet an act, because UPSC has asked such questions on bills also in 2020 when it has asked on the draft environment impact assessment. So we have to also prepare the various bills and the various drafts of the particular legislation which are very, very important for India. So I'm definitely predicting that this year, right, this year in mains, that question has a high amount of probability of coming in the examination. Now, when we talk about disasters and India, we have to talk about data. And in your mains answers, it is very appreciative if you are actually including data in your introductions, or maybe in your conclusion, or maybe a significant part of your body. So we have to understand, according to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, right, India is among the top 3 nations with most number of natural disasters, where India is just coming after China, USA, right, with around 321 number of natural disasters between 2000 to 2019. That is within the span of 20 years. Also, according to a down-to-earth report which has compiled the various data from IMD, from various ministries in the country, it has found that all 36 Indian states and UTs have reported extreme weather events in 2023. Extreme weather events are heat waves, cyclones, snowfall, cloudburst, right, floods, heavy rains, flash floods, lightning and storms. All of the same are increasing over a period of time, right? As we can see, the severity of the extreme weather events are more during the months of June to September. Why? Because we have the summer months and the Indian monsoon months, where mostly we find landslides, we have flash floods, we have cloudburst events, which we'll be also discussing later in this analyst session only, right? We have this amount of, say, incidents during this time, right? So we are, as a nation, becoming extremely prone to climate related events. Also, according to a study by Drabo and Bay of 2015, they have concluded that natural disasters and migration, they have a direct relation. That means increasing number of natural disasters will definitely be displacing a lot of people, both internally within the nation and also international migrants, refugees, right? So we have to understand that increasing number of natural disasters and also disasters in general, both natural and man-made disasters, they can increase the risk of migration, refugees all across the world, as also has been seen from 1975 to 2000. So please do not forget to use these studies, use this research in your answers, right? And also you can simply draw a diagram, draw a graph to illustrate this. Your examiner will definitely be very happy in actually seeing these particular things, because in mains you have to actually be very unique. You have to quote some things which are not quoted by others, right? Now, when we try to look into the architecture of the Disaster Management Act of 2005, right, we have the particular act implemented across various levels of the government. Firstly, at the central level, where we have the NDMA, right, Natural Disaster Management Authority, right, where we also have the National Executive Committee, which is trying to also aid and advise and also trying to have an executive council, executive control over the NDMA. This is at the central level, where we have also, when the Planning Commission was there, it is not right now in say progress, right? When the Planning Commission was there, Planning Commission used to give various inputs. The Ministry of Home Affairs gives right now various inputs, apart from the various ministries, departments, and also the armed forces, right? Apart from this, we also have the Cabinet Committee for Security, Cabinet Committee on Management of Natural Calamities, High Level Committee, and the National Crisis Management Committee, which are also participating in the NDMA's function, right? According to the NDMA, right, website, we also have various allied organizations. We have the National Institute for Disaster Management, we have the National Disaster Response Force, and also we have the National Disaster Mitigation Center. At the central level, we have this kind of architecture. At the state level and at the UT's government level, we have the state disaster management authorities, right? Also, we have the various ministries, civil defense, home guards, police, fire services. Down the state level, we have the district level, where we have the district disaster management authorities. We have the departments, we have the civil defense, home guards, police, fire services again. And finally, at the local authorities, we also have some amount of disaster resilience management. Now, according to the Amendment Bill of 2024, we are trying to increase the powers of the particular authorities across all the levels, particularly strengthening the National Disaster Management Authority and the SDMAs across the states, where right now the government is actually proposing to actually shift the responsibility of preparing the disaster management plans from the national and state executive committees to the NDMA and the SDMA, and hence empowering them, and hence reducing the amount of delays and the bureaucratic aspect of the same, because disasters require swift response from the various authorities. Next, it is also trying to create a database of disasters at both national and state levels, where we'll be including disaster assessment, fund allocation, expenditure, preparedness and mitigation plans, which are very, very important to actually address both pre-disasters and post-disaster management practices, and risk observance based on type and severity of the disasters. And finally, a very, very important provision of this bill would be making it mandatory for all of the states to have state disaster response force, because till now it is a voluntary practice practiced by most of the states. Now it will be a mandatory practice that all of the states must be having their own SDRF. The next provisions are actually granting statutory status to pre-act bodies, that is the bodies which were prevalent before 2005 Act of Disaster Management, such as the National Crisis Management Committee and the Inter-Ministerial High-Level Committee for Financial Assistance approval, because we have to give them statutory recognition, because they are extremely important when we are talking about coordination of national disasters or state-related disasters and various release of financing aspect of the same. Next, we also will be having a very, very important body known as Urban Disaster Management Authority, which will be set up at all state capitals and large cities with where we have the municipal corporations, because we now know that issue of urban flooding, issue of heat waves, issues of various aspects of climate related change, right? These are having severe impacts on the urban India, and that is why we need a specific body for the same. And there should be also city level disaster management plans supervised by the municipal corporation development officers. Also, apart from this, we'll be having rule making powers, where the central government will be setting the terms and conditions with reference to service and appointments at the NDMA, right? And also will be the center will be empowering the National Executive Committee with coordination, particularly with the coordination with various states, because it has been seen that recently in over the last 5-6 years, the coordination with this national and the state authorities related to disaster management has been very poor, due to which a lot of lives have been lost. So that is why particular focus is emphasized on the National Executive Committee to coordinate various disasters. Next, there will be various disaster, disciplinary actions taken against officers in the country who are accused of taking bribes and various other aspects. And also, authorities will be empowered, and a new section 60A will be added, where center and state can be directing the various individuals who are not following the directions of the various disaster management authorities, and they can be also levied penalties for non-compliance, right? So these are the various detailed provisions. I expect all of you to please note down and understand them in detail. Now, firstly, when we are talking about implications, we have to understand that this particular bill is trying to have an architecture of hazard analysis, right, which is actually looking at the various pre-disaster and post-disaster facilities, right, and also the various decision-making analysis, where the socio-economic, technical, environmental, economic, political aspects will be taken in disaster interventions analysis, and also when we factor about the recovery time of disasters. So it is a very inclusive policy at the outset. And also let us look at the both positive and negative implications of this bill, where we need more improvements. Firstly, it is looking into enhanced coordination between various states and the government, central government, because it is having a centralized disaster database with a statutory status, right? Also, one negative implication it can be leading it to will be leading to bureaucratic complexity, because new authorities and committees will be given statutory status. Apart from this, we can also understand the state autonomy versus central oversight will be something that can be compromised according to various political parties, opposition parties here, because it is talking about the overarching role of the center on the appointment of the officials at the NDMA, and also maybe the potential intervention of the authority of the NDMA in the SDMA's role also, right? Also, the center's ability to impose disciplinary fines on the various officers, both at the center and the state level, can be a form of, a center-state tension, right? And also, there can be various, there is a particular various, issue which has been missed out from this act, from this bill rather, is that till now in India, we do not have disaster within the state union concurrent list. And that is why there have been various calls by various committees, by various recommendations, right, to include disaster management as a component maybe under the concurrent list, but that has been missed. So let us actually hope that the center at the end of the day will be including this provision also. Apart from this, we also have a long way to go, because we need to strengthen the participation of the private sector by increasing public-private partnerships in disaster management, particularly in post and when we talk about mitigation measures. Next, we must be trying to increase the corporate social responsibility, where CSR can be made actually a provision of the for contribution to the disaster management aspects. Then the media's roles must be defined, particularly while covering the various natural disasters live on the TV, where various guidelines, where various rules must be framed. Next, the evolving nature of disasters, particularly the biochemical disasters, or the pandemics, right? The pandemics that can be spreading in the future, they must also be included within the definition of the disasters. The role of the civil defense, NCC, right, the various NSS, local NGOs, they must be strengthened via recognizing their role in the statute. And finally, the second ARC actually reported on the National Disaster Management Act 2005 that there must be categorization of disasters based on the local, district, state, or national levels. And finally, there must be stringent punishment for the misutilization of funds, which is actually being undertaken in this particular act. And finally, we have 7 targets to adhere to under the Sendai framework. You mentioned the year in which the framework was actually adopted in the comments below. Sendai framework is having 7 targets for all: to decrease disaster mortality by 2030, decrease the number of people affected by 2030, to decrease the economic loss by 2030, to decrease the infrastructural damage by 2030, and to increase the national local strategy by 2020 and international cooperation by 2030, and the various amount of information sharing practices by 2030. So please do not forget to mention Sendai framework and also the various amounts of second ARC recommendation in your answers. Now this is a practice UPSC mains question for you all again. Highlight the various provisions and implications of the National Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024. And in your answers, always with reference to disaster management, try to include some diagrams or flow charts like this, right? And in the comments, you let me know what other aspects must be catered in this particular bill. In the next article, we'll be discussing about the recent Supreme Court verdict on SC/ST subclassification. This topic was taught in the last analyst story itself. Here we'll be discussing about the Supreme Court verdict. Now this is a very important topic where you have to update your class notes right now. You cannot rely on a particular book right now, right? Based on prelims, you have to look at it from Indian polity perspective, and from GS2 perspective you have to look at the Indian Constitution one. In the comments, you let me know how much percentage of reservation India is giving to SC community and the ST community separately. Right? Achha. We'll be starting our discussion in 1975 when the Punjab government in one notification tried to grant a special status to two SC communities of Balmiki and Mazhabi Sikh. Now later in 2004 in the Chinnaiya case, E.V. Chinnaiya case, right, the Supreme Court struck down the Andhra Pradesh Scheduled Caste Rationalization of Reservation Act of 2000, where Andhra Pradesh also followed the same pattern of Punjab government by giving some special category to the SC communities because belonging to the lowest developmental parameters, right? But the Supreme Court in this particular case told that this is going against Article 14 because you cannot discriminate between the scheduled castes and the various communities within the scheduled castes, right? It told that the list the scheduled caste list must be a single and homogeneous group, right? And also the scheduled castes are actually been given provisions of reservation due to historic discrimination due to untouchability. And also according to Article 341, the President is empowered to have the list classified, not the state government, where the Supreme Court clarified that they cannot interfere nor disturb the list, right? Now here, under this Dr. Kishan Pal versus State of Punjab case, right, we have to understand that the State of Punjab had to rescind or take back some of the provisions here. Well, later again under in October 2006, the Punjab government changed some of the provisions again and tried to pass this particular act. But again, the Punjab and Haryana court, High Court, it struck down in 2010. Right? And later in Devinder Singh versus State of Punjab 2014, the Supreme Court noted that this particular issue is needing shall need a larger audience of justices or a larger bench, because we have to understand in the 5-judge bench in 2018 General Singh case, right, it has been for the very first time Supreme Court formally recognize the need for subcategorization within the SCs to some deserving candidates, right, and not to some candidates who have already achieved a higher level or higher socio-economic status within the SC community. Now here in this verdict by 7-judge constitution bench, right, there were 4 issues which were addressed, right, and these are very, very important for your understanding. Firstly, the first issue is that are all castes in the SC list to be treated similarly, right? In the Chinnaiya case, right, Article 341 and 341 subclause 2 was quoted that the President and the Parliament are the highest authorities within the SC list. But in 2004 judgment, it has been seen that the presidential list of SCs are just legal fiction. Why? Because there are many people who have become IAS, IPS officers, right? And despite that, from the SC communities, the judges have told, despite that, their next generations are still getting the status. Right, so this is not a rational, not a good rationale to go through, because the state government should be knowing the main economic and social backwardness of particular some SC communities. And this brings us to the next issue, that can states tinker or change the subcategorization of the presidential list or say the various SC communities. The Supreme Court told that yes, under Article 15 and Article 16, the state governments have some powers to identify some of the backward classes of the SC communities and give reservations to them. The issue 3 is what is the yardstick for subclassification? What should be the criteria? Firstly, the criteria, and mostly the firstly and lastly, the criteria must be effective representation, that people who genuinely need, they must be getting that. Not just mere numerical representation, that the numerical representation which I told to write in the comment section, right? That numerical representation must not be the norm. Effective representation, the people who genuinely need, they must be getting the same. And finally, the fourth issue is that does the creamy layer principle apply to the scheduled caste? 4 out of the 7 judges are in favor of this creamy layer being included, right? So this is the status as of now. We'll be seeing as to how the states and the center will be responding going forward. And here I have a question from mains perspective, because this is a very significant aspect, and maybe a question can appear in mains this year. The question is, SC/ST subclassification is the need of the hour. Do you agree? Illustrator views with landmark Supreme Court cases and judgments as discussed here. And for your reference, for prelims reference, now in this Indian Express article, we have the various SC communities in Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Gujarat, Uttarakhand, Tripura, Assam. So please do have a brief look at the various communities. Pause your screen and please do have a look at the various communities given here. In the next one, we'll be looking into the Places of Worship Act, where the Allahabad High Court has told that the suits of Hindu worshippers and deity is maintainable, and rejects the Masjid Committee's challenge in the Shahi Idgah Mosque case. Now, while the details of the cases are not important, what is important for us is to understand what is the Places of Worship Act is, because it is very important for our prelims under Indian polity and governance, and under the Indian Constitution we have to discuss the various historical underpinnings, evolution, and features of our Constitution. Firstly, let us understand what are actually meant by places of worship. We know that places of worship are our temples, our mosques, our church, or the various religious, say, places where the people of the country, people of the entire world, they go to worship. Now, why they go to worship at these places only? Because they associate the people, the devotees, associate these places with religious characters. Maybe there is a deity or a figure there. Maybe there is a religious symbol, design, ritualistic significance associated with the place. Maybe that place is mainly giving them a sense of community, right? So it can be due to the religious characters due to these reasons. And the Places of Worship Act came due to the background of the Babri Masjid case of the 1980s, when there was a huge amount of momentum to actually topple the Babri Masjid mosque and build a temple there, right? And here, after this particular conflict, there were also other mosques who came into picture, right? Particularly the Gyanvapi mosques in Varanasi and the Shahi Idgah Mosque in Mathura, which is the mosque in our news right now, right? In the 1990s, right, the PV Narasimha Rao government tried to sort out this case, because this particular activity was leading to huge amount of religious riots and forcible destruction of various religious places and conversion of the religious character, right? And that is where the PV Narasimha Rao government tried to enact a special law to freeze the status of various places of worship as it was on the 15th of August 1947, right? That means if a particular temple is belonging to the Hindu denomination as of 1947, 15th August, so it would be having that religious character forever. That particular character cannot be changed, right? So the main features is that religious character must be as on 15th August 1947. No person shall convert to any different denomination a particular place of worship. All suits, appeals, etc. regarding conversion that are pending before courts and authorities as on 15th August 1947 will be abeyed. That means no further legal proceedings can be instituted against them. There are actually exceptions. Firstly, the Babri Masjid Ram Janmabhoomi dispute is an exception, right? Because due to the various severity of the case back then. Also, the various monuments which are covered under Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act of 1958, they are also excluded. And also, this will not be applying to any suit which is finally settled before the 1991 Act, that is the Places of Worship Act. And also, conversion of any place that took place by force or acquiescence, right? So, if any particular place has been converted using force, that place will also be having this exception. Now, finally, we will be discussing 4 important important prelims snippets where we'll be starting with sovereign gold bond scheme, where the government decision right now is to reduce the customs duty on gold. And right now the government is trying to decrease the custom duty to bring down the cost of gold in the country. And this will be also affecting the sovereign gold bond. Now let us understand the sovereign gold bond scheme first. See, it is to be issued by the Reserve Bank of India on the behalf of the government, right? And the people will be, should be mostly the resident Indian entities, including individuals, HUFs, trust, universities, charitable institutions. Now in the comment section, you tell me who exactly are known as resident Indians. Are they citizens, or they can be sometimes even be foreigners? You let me know in the comments, right? Okay, now the denomination of this particular scheme is that the basic unit must be of 1 gram of gold. And are we purchasing physical say gold? No. In return of the physical gold that the RBI is purchasing from your side, if you are willing to buy 1 gram of gold, the RBI will be giving you one bond, right? That bond will be having 8 years of tenure, right? And can be exercised, or say from the 5th year you can exit the bond, right? And every year you will be getting interest payment on the bond. So if you are buying the physical gold, you will be not getting any interest payment. But if you are buying this bond, you are getting interest payments annually, right? So this is why this is a very attractive investment opportunity. And the maximum the minimum size that is permissible is actually 2 units or 2 grams of gold. The maximum will be 500 grams of gold per person, and they can be sold via various post offices or say through agents. Even the secondary bonds are also traded at the stock markets, and they will be taxed according to the usual tax slabs, and also will be subjected to capital gains. Now the Union government has recently reduced the customs duty on gold, and this will be mitigating the redemption cost for the sovereign gold. What is the redemption cost? It is the interest charges that the government have to pay to the people of who are actually buying the bond, right? So if we are trying to reduce the import duties, it will be leading to less amount of cost for the government. Also, this will be leading to high amount of attractiveness of the schedule of the sovereign gold bonds because of the low cost of the bonds. And finally, people will be shifting for physical gold to SGBs. Why? Because in the world, India ranks first when it comes to holding of physical gold by the households, right? So this is what we have to understand. India is also trying to use the gold in the financial sector of the country via sovereign gold bond scheme. In the next one, we'll be looking into European Commission, which is actually a very important executive body of the European Union, right? European Commission is having 27 commissioners, each from one EU nation, right? And in the comments, you let me know the top 5 most important European Union nations, right? And you'll also let me know the newest, right, or say the latest European Union member, right? So this European Commission is an executive body which is proposing new laws, implementing EU policies, managing European Union budgets, and the president of this particular European Commission, right, it is coming from the Parliament, because the Parliament elects the president of the Commission, later is approves the Commission as a body. Right now, the European Commission submits various legislative proposals to the European Parliament, which is having 720 members directly elected by the EU citizens every 5 years. Right? It is also submitting legislative proposals to the Council of the European Union, where it is having the government ministers, where they negotiate and adopt laws. Correct? Now, apart from this particular role, it is also having the role as performing the guardian of the various treaties within the EU. It is also functioning as a negotiator of various international negotiations, including the trade deals. It is also trying to promote EU's interest abroad. And also, when we look at a structure, it is having the College of the Commissioners, right, where we have 27 commissioners, and also the Directorate Generals, which is divided into various policy areas for EU legislations. The next one we'll be looking is to what cloudbursts are. Firstly, as we can understand, according to the IMD definition, over 100 millimeters of rainfall in 1 hour is known as cloudburst, and it generally occurs within a very small geographical region and generally within the mountains, where the cumulonimbus clouds wreak havoc on the mountains and bring in high amount of rainfall within a short period of time, within a short area, right? Rainfall of more than 100 millimeters per hour translates into 100 liters per square meter. So you can imagine the strength of the water pouring down, and that is why the name cloudburst, because it seems that the cloud has actually burst, releasing a lot of amount of rainfall, a sudden amount of rainfall, right? And it is also for a small area of 20 square kilometers, is about 2 billion liters of water within an hour. So you can only imagine the destruction, the speed of destruction and damage that can accompany a cloudburst, right? So here, tall cumulonimbus clouds causing cloudbursts can develop quickly in 30 minutes as and when the clouds try to ascend the mountain slopes and become cooler and try to have a heavy downpour. And cloudbursts are actually occurring over the rugged terrains of the Himalayas. It is also common over the Western Ghats, right, and the northeastern hilly states of the country. In India, cloudbursts often occur during the monsoon seasons, right, when the southwest monsoon winds bring in huge amount of moisture inland, and gradually it try to ascends the mountains, and it cools down and results in huge amount of cloudbursts. And the latest of it is actually taking place in Himachal Pradesh right now. Finally, we'll be concluding with Purchasing Managers Index, which is a survey-based economic indicator, and this is released on a monthly basis. This is calculating the various amounts of purchase orders done by the managers based on the new orders registered by the various manufacturing companies, service sectors, various outputs that they're having, if they're actually employing new people or not, if they're actually delivering the suppliers time or not, or say having on-time delivery of various consignments, or they're having huge amount of stocks of purchases or not. So based on this, we have the 50 as a middle mark. So if the index is more than 50, that means our purchasing orders, our output, our employment, it has increased over a period of time, right? If it is more than 50, if it is less than 50, that means our economy has contracted, because the managers of the various companies, they are not placing many orders, they are not increasing output, not employment, stocks of purchases and delivery times. Then India, for PMI, it is actually released by S&P Global Market Intelligence. So I thank you all for being a very patient audience. This has been all for today. We'll be meeting again. Till then, you attempt the quiz which is following up, and you give me the answer in the comments below. So all the best and best of luck. Thank you.